If the brothers in the blue carpet area that are busy talking, please do come into the main masjid, inshallah. The brothers in the blue carpet area that are talking very loudly, disturbing everyone, praying, sitting, trying to talk. And just a very important announcement before we start, inshallah, just been forwarded to me. So we need volunteers to come forward. They'll be gathering at Rochester Cathedral on Saturday, October the 18th, where we will recite the names of those innocent children who have been killed in a genocide in Gaza. So we need brothers and sisters to come with your families and to be involved in this initiative, inshallah, and show your presence there. The link to join, inshallah, will be on our masjid WhatsApp group now. I'll just forward it on now. So brothers, please do present your names to come forward, inshallah. Each slot will be 5 to 10 minutes. So I've just sent you onto our masjid WhatsApp group. So brothers and sisters, whoever can, inshallah, bring your families and just use the link on the message to sign up, inshallah. So we're talking about the munafiqeen and their laziness in salah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the munafiqeen. Allah mentions that they are lazy when it comes to salah. In another verse, Allah talks about their hesitancy in giving charity. It's not that they're stingy, that they refuse to give charity, because they're lazy. They can't be bothered. In another verse, Allah talks about how when the Muslims would march out and go out in the path of Allah, فَرِحَ الْمُخَلَّفُونَ بِمَقْعَدِهِمْ خِلَافَ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ وَكَرِهَ يُجَاهِدُ بِأَمْوَالِهِمْ وَأَنفُسِهِمْ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. That they were pleased to stay behind while the rest of the believers, they went out in the path of Allah, exerting themselves, their efforts, their strength, their health, spending their own wealth, whilst they were happy to stay behind and lag behind. Imran, can you just go tell them to not talk? Tell them all to come in. Whoever's there, just tell them to come in. If they're in the halakah, they should be in here. So the munafiqeen in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, they were just happy to stay behind, happy to just sit on the sidelines, while the believers, they made the effort. They prioritized the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the Prophet ﷺ, any laziness, he disliked it in any of his companions or anyone putting themselves back. Narration of Sahih Muslim, that once the Prophet ﷺ, he saw his companions, رَأَ فِي أَصْحَابِهِ تَأَخُرًا, that they were hesitant in coming towards the first rows in salah. This is just the rows in salah. And the Prophet ﷺ, he announced, تَقَدَّمُوا فَأْتَمُّوا بِي, that come forward, follow me. وَلْيَأْتِمَّ بِكُمْ مَنْ بَعَدَكُمْ, so that those are behind you or are come after you, they'll follow you. وَلَا يَزَالُ قَوْمٌ يَتَأَخَّرُونَ حَتَّى يُؤَخِّرُهُمُ اللَّهُ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ. That people, they keep on putting themselves back until Allah will keep them back. So the Prophet ﷺ even disliked not hastening towards the first rows and just being comfortable with being at the back. Imam Nawawi, he explains this hadith. He says, يَتَأَخَّرُونَ أَيْ عَنِ السُّفُوفِ الْأُولَى. What do they, in this context, what's the Prophet ﷺ talking about? Staying back from the first rows. حَتَّى يُؤَخِّرُهُمُ اللَّهُ, until, so someone that even is comfortable staying behind from the first rows, حَتَّى يُؤَخِّرُهُمُ اللَّهُ رَحْمَتِهِ, that Allah will keep them back from His mercy, وَعَظِيمِ فَضْلِهِ, and His immense bounty, وَرَفْعِ الْمَنْزِلَةِ, and even from elevating their status, and from knowledge, وَنَحْوِ ذَلِكَ, and all of these sorts of goodness. Shaykh ibn Uthaymin here, he mentions, الإنسان كلما تأخر عن الصف الأول أو الثاني أو الثالث, when a person is lax and very relaxed in terms of attaining the first row or second row or third row, they're just comfortable being at the back. He mentions ألقى الله في قلبه محبة التأخر. Allah will put in that person's heart the love of staying back, remaining behind. في كل عمل صالح, in every act, in every good deed. Because a person is Salah is the main act of worship. This is the main time that we show our raghba, our desire, our willingness to come to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if in the main act of worship we are lax and hesitant, then what about everything else? So when a person has this laziness, Ibn al-Qayyim, he mentions, and he continues, the first thing, that person will never be a leader of their people. They'll never be given a high position amongst the people. Because he says that it's never known that someone who was lazy was ever given a position of authority. And Islam, the manhaj of Islam, is that it requires us to be active. And I'll mention with just these few points, inshallah. That it requires us to be active in every aspect, whether it's to do with the world, whether it's to do with our work, whether it's to do with our studies, whether it's to do with the akhirah. It requires us to be active in every field. One narration of Bayhaqi, the Sahaba say that once we were sitting with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, اطلع علينا شاب من الشباب. That one youngster came, and when we saw him, we said about this youngster, لو أن هذا الشاب جعل شبابه ونشاطه وقوته في سبيل الله. That what if this youngster was to spend his youth, his energy, and his strength in the path of Allah, meaning in jihad, in fighting. And the Prophet ﷺ, he heard what we said, because he hadn't gone out with the rest of the believers to defend Islam and so on. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said here, وَمَا سَبِيلُ اللَّهِ إِلَّا مَنْ قُتِلْ, is the path of Allah only to be killed? And then the Prophet ﷺ said, مَنْ سَعَى عَلَى وَالِدَيْهِ فَفِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ, whoever is working hard to look after the parents in the path of Allah. وَمَنْ سَعَى عَلَى عِيَالِهِ فَفِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ, whoever is working hard to look after the family, they're in the path of Allah. وَمَنْ سَعَى عَلَى نَفْسِهِ لِيُعِفَهُ فَفِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ, whoever is working hard to attain marriage so that they can stay chaste, then they're in the path of Allah. Except the one who is just working to amass the world. فَهُوَ فِي سَبِيلِ الشَّيْطَانِ, this person, just for the sake of the world, not for the sake of the hereafter, just for the world, just for the sake of amassing. سَعَى عَلَى التَّكَاثُرِ فَهُوَ فِي سَبِيلِ الشَّيْطَانِ, then this person is the path of shaitan. So the manhaj of the Prophet ﷺ is all of these acts of goodness, whether it's related to the dunya, but the purpose has to be for the akhirah. So the person is lazy will lose out in this immense rewards. And of course, the only thing that we're left with is regret due to our laziness. Ibn al-Jawzi, he says, وَأَيُّ عَيْشْ لِمَنْ سَاكِنَ الْكَسَلِ, what life is there for a person who is just lazy? إِذَا رَأَى أَقْرَانَهُ قَدْ بَرَزُوا فِي الْعِلْمِ وَهُوَ جَاهِلٌ, imagine the regrets that he will have when he sees everyone around him, they're excelling in knowledge while he still remains a jahil. Or وَاسْتَغْنَى وَهُوَ فَقِيرٌ, or everyone around him is wealthy but he's poor. فَهَلْ يَبْقَى لِلْإِلْتِذَاذِ بِالْكَسَلِ وَالرَّاحَ مَعْنًا, he says, then will you find joy and pleasure in your laziness or your comfort? He said, you won't, when you see everyone excelling around you. Ibn al-Qayyim al-Jawziyah, he says, مَنْ نَامَ عَلَى فِرَاشِ الْكَسَلِ, whoever sleeps on the bedding of laziness, أَصْبَحَ مَلْقًا بِوَادِ الْأَسَفِ, he'll wake up in the morning meeting the valley of regrets. And the ulama, they say, of course, the greatest regrets, I'm not going to go into this, our time is short, is that the greatest regret will be when we are deficient in the rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But just very quickly, what are we lazy from? Number one is knowledge. One of the greatest things we're lazy from is seeking knowledge. And every person should either be an alim or a muta'allim. There is no third. In Islam, there is no third. Either you're a scholar or you're a student of knowledge. If you're a third, then you're destroying yourself. Because seeking knowledge is not just for scholars. Teaching is for scholars only. But seeking knowledge for the scholars and every other person. طَلَبُ الْعِلْمِ فَرِيضٌ عَلَى كُلِّ مُسْلِمٍ. If we're not teaching, then we're studying. We spend some portion of our time attending a course, studying the fiqh of tahara, fiqh of salah, fiqh of zakat and hajj, studying aqidah, tafsir, hadith, fiqh, usul al-fiqh. Every person should take out some time to go and study under the ulama. Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbali says, الناس محتاجون إلى العلم أكثر من حاجتهم إلى الطعام والشراب. We are in need of seeking knowledge more than we are in need of food and water. And this knowledge is the very thing that the Prophet said, if you want to know if Allah wants good for you or not, يُفَقِّهُ فِي الدِّينِ. Allah will give you the understanding of religion. Meaning Allah will give you the ability to study, go under the feet of the ulama and study with them. That's when you know Allah wants good for you. It's regarding knowledge that the Prophet said, whoever travels the path of knowledge, Allah will make the path of paradise easy for that person. Knowledge is the inheritance of the Anbiya. So the first thing that we're lazy in is knowledge. We need to be connected to knowledge. We need to be studying every single day. Whether that's 10 minutes of studying, whether that's 20 or 30, there needs to be some portion of our time dedicated to studying. And of course, I'm not going to go into in detail the laziness in terms of ibadat, when it comes to delaying the salah from its correct time, or missing the jama'ah, or someone that only prays the fara'id. This is a sign of extreme kasal. I just pray my 4 fard, or my 2 sunnahs, or my 2 fard, or my 3 fard, and I say I miss my sunan or rawatib. This is sign of extreme kasal. Another sign of kasal the ulama mention is abandoning completely the nawafil. One is I don't pray them all the time because I'm busy, I'm work and so on. One is to never pray them. This is again a sign of kasal. And so one important thing that the ulama have mentioned here, another sign that we have kasal within us is, one is if we abandon worship, or lazy in our worship, or lazy in seeking knowledge. And the third one, we probably never even thought of it. Because that's how far-fetched this has become. Is, they say, al-kasal fi da'wa ila Allah. Laziness in giving da'wah. Number one, all of the prophets were du'at. They would call us to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nuh alayhi salam, قَالَ رَبِّ إِنِّي دَعَوْتُ قَوْمِي لَيْلًا وَنَهَارًا. That, oh my Lord, I call my people day and night. Basically 24/7 I call them, in the day and in the night. Every prophet said, إِنِّي لَكُمْ نَذِيرٌ مُبِينٌ. That I am for you a clear warner. And of course the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكِ إِلَّا كَافَّةً لِلنَّاسِ, that we have sent you for the entire mankind. But you know in the Quran when Allah talks about da'wah, does He just talk about the prophets that gave da'wah? Is it the only prophets that gave da'wah? In the Quran, who else gave da'wah? Let's see. You can tell me. In the Quran, who else gave da'wah besides the prophets? Sorry? The jinn. Okay, mashallah. Okay, yes. The jinn, they gave da'wah. When they heard the Quran, they went back to the people. Who else gave da'wah in the Quran? The people who slept in the cave. Did they give da'wah? Did they give da'wah? إِذْ قَامُوا فَقَالُوا رَبُّ. Indirectly, but they were more to preserving their own iman. Yep. The boy and the king. Boy in the, which boy and which king? Boy and the king. Which? Anyone know? But that's the prophet. So besides the prophets. I'm not sure, maybe look into that one, inshallah. Mu'minat Fir'aun, the believer amongst the people of Fir'aun, who stood up and gave da'wah, yes? Which other instance do we have that Allah records? Non-Anbiya giving da'wah. Habib al-Najjar, which surah? Surah Yasin, وَجَاءَ مِنْ أَقْصَى الْمَدِينَةِ رَجُلٌ يَسْعَى قَالَ يَا قَوْمِ اتَّبِعُوا الْمُرْسَلِينَ. A man came all the way from the other side of the city, running. Oh my people, follow the messengers. He gave them da'wah. He probably didn't have much knowledge. He didn't say anything from his own self. He just said, follow the messengers. It's a very important example.
Who is da'i ila Allah? They can do that.
That's true. So Allah mentions this to be an usul for us. It wasn't just the Anbiya that gave da'wah, it was the non-Anbiya that gave da'wah. And then, what about the ummah of the Prophet ﷺ? What does Allah say about this ummah? One is the famous hadith, قُلْ كُنْتُمْ خَيْرَ أُمَّةٍ نُخْرِجَتْ لِلنَّاسِ, that you are the greatest nation taken out for the benefit of mankind, you command towards good and you forbid from evil. And then there's this other verse. And when I was reading this, subhanAllah, when you contemplate upon this verse, قُلْ هَذِهِ سَبِيلِي أَدْعُو إِلَى اللَّهِ عَلَى بَصِيرَةٍ أَنَا وَمَنِ اتَّبَعَنِي. So Allah tells the Prophet ﷺ to say this. هَذِهِ سَبِيلِي, this is my path. And what's the path of the Messenger ﷺ? أَدْعُو إِلَى اللَّهِ, I call to Allah, عَلَى بَصِيرَةٍ, with foresight, with wisdom, with foresight. And then whose path is this? أَنَا وَمَنِ اتَّبَعَنِي, this is my path and the path of my followers. Ibn al-Qayyim al-Jawziyah rahimahullah, here he writes, you cannot claim to be a follower of this messenger if you are not involved in da'wah. Because here, the Prophet said, this is my path for ana wa man ittaba'ani, and for those who follow me. So he says that you cannot claim to be a messenger, a follower of the messenger, unless you are involved in da'wah ila Allah. Because his path and the path of his followers is the path of da'wah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he clearly says that whoever does not give da'wah to Allah is not on this path. فَمَنْ لَمْ يَدْعُ إِلَى اللَّهِ فَلَيْسَ عَلَى سَبِيلِهِ. Whoever is not involved in giving da'wah, he is not in the path of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Imagine how harsh and severe these words are. Now, al-kasal in da'wah towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We've gone to such a stage of kasal of this ummah, we don't even think of this as our responsibility. And whenever I do give a bit of da'wah, I think it's something nafil I've done. I feel good. You know when you pray extra 10 rakats of nafil, you feel good, isn't it? I've done something extra. This is how we feel, unfortunately, when we give da'wah. We think, subhanAllah, today I've done something amazing, something really good. But this is supposed to be just like a 5 times salah. It's an obligation, just like the obligation of salah. So Ibn al-Qayyim al-Jawziyah is very explicit here. So kasal, in regards to da'wah. When the Prophet was alive, he sent so many of companions for da'wah. Who did the Prophet send for da'wah? To go to the Jews and to give them da'wah. And the Prophet said to him, فَوَاللَّهِ لَا يَهْدِيَ اللَّهُ بِكْ رَجُلًا وَاحِدًا خَيْرٌ لَكَ مِنْ أَن يَكُونَ لَكَ حُمْرٌ نَعَمٍ. That if Allah guides one person through you, then this is better than receiving a red she-camel. And the Prophet he sent him to give them da'wah. أُنْفُذَ عَلَى رِسْلِكَ حَتَّى تَنْزِلْ بِسَاحَتِهِمْ. So keep going until you reach them. ثُمَّ دُعُهُمْ إِلَى الْإِسْلَامِ. Then call them towards Islam. The Prophet commanded him, give each and every one of them da'wah towards Islam. And one of his companion? Ali radiallahu anhu. Who did the Prophet send to Yemen for da'wah? Mu'adh ibn Jabal. The Prophet told Mu'adh to go to Yemen and tell them first, give them da'wah to shahada la ilaha illallah. When they accept that, then Muhammad Rasulullah. Then once they accept that, then give them da'wah towards iqam as-salah. Once they accept that, etc., etc., etc. So the Prophet ﷺ, he commanded the Sahaba, he sent them out for da'wah. And he commanded them, بَلِّغُوا عَنِّي وَلَوْ آيَةً. How much knowledge? Sometimes we say, I don't have knowledge to give da'wah. How much knowledge do we need? One verse. Spread from it. As soon as you know one verse, it becomes your responsibility. The Prophet ﷺ said, يَسْمَعُونَ مِنْكُمْ وَيُسْمَعُونَ. That people will be listening from you. وَيُسْمَعُونَ مَا يَسْمَعُهُ مِنْكُمْ. So basically you listen from me, and then others will listen from you. And then the next generation will listen from you. And so on and so on. So da'wah is our responsibility. لِيُبَلِّغَ الشَّاهِدْ مِنْكُمُ الْغَائِبِ. In Hajjat al-Wada', the Prophet said that those who are present must go and inform those who are absent. And I'll mention the quote of Ibn Taymiyyah here. Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, he says, فَالدَّعْوَ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَاجِبَ عَلَى مَنِ اتَّبَعَ. To give da'wah towards Allah is wajib. He says a fard. This is a compulsion. It is compulsory just like salah. Upon those who follow the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam. وَهُمْ أُمَّتُهُ. And they are his ummah. Those who give da'wah are his ummah. يَدْعُونَ إِلَى اللَّهِ كَمَا دَعَى إِلَى اللَّهِ. That they give da'wah towards Allah just as he, the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam, gave da'wah towards Allah. بَلْ هِيَ فَرْضُ كِفَايَةٍ. It says this is a communal obligation as well. That if there's not enough of you giving da'wah towards our non-Muslim neighbors, then everyone is sinful. And it says, what happens when an entire community refuses to give da'wah? This is back when there was an Islamic state. You know what he says? وَإِلَّا قُوتِلُوا عَلَى تَرْكِهِ. The Sultan should wage war against his community because they refuse to give da'wah. That's what he says. This is, of course, in a state and where there's Islamic state. That the Sultan should wage war against that community because they're too lazy to give da'wah. So again, this is one of our responsibilities. But anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. There's many things that some of the ulama have mentioned where our laziness becomes transparent. They've talked about laziness and seeking rizq. Being too lazy to earn a livelihood, again, is blameworthy in Islam. When you can't be bothered to work. You're active, you're healthy, but you just can't be bothered. The ulama have mentioned laziness in walking. Nowadays, we can't be bothered to walk anywhere. Sometimes, of course, we drive to save time, but sometimes when we don't even have, then it's not about saving time, it's just about walking. The ulama have mentioned that someone that's sluggish in walking, dislikes walking, is a person that's kaslan, is a person that's lazy. The way the Prophet ﷺ, Sahaba, they actively describe Sahaba, so the Sahaba actually described the Prophet ﷺ that أَسْرَعَ النَّاسِ مَشْيًا. He was the most fastest person when it came to walking. وَأَحْسَنَهُ, the most graceful and the most composed. So the Sahaba, they describe how fast the Prophet ﷺ would walk, that we would find it difficult to keep up with him. And the Prophet ﷺ, he walked with purpose, without laziness. But anyway, we'll end there, I think. Brothers can serve the tea, inshallah.
Sheikh, one announcement.
Yes.
On 8th of October, we are having a demo outside BAE at 11 o'clock. People coming all over the Kent and all non-Muslims. We need some Muslims to show their faces.
On the 8th of October, outside the BAE systems. What time?
It's 11 to 1.
11 till 1.
Even to local people who can come and join. We need some stewards also. So please announce.
So brothers are able to come inshallah at the 8th of October outside BAE system. Wednesday 8th of inshallah, brothers and sisters are able to come. Inshallah, please do come forward. We'll